How does that
No,
look?
I'm not saying that. You get some sense that there's a handful of stocks.
Look at that. I mean, you could tie that to the market. Bang.
Nice shirt, bro. Did they make that in your size, by the way? Just
I don't know
kidding.
what you mean by that. It's either you're thinking it's too small or too big. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just bulking up. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I mean, you're looking big. Big week for the SEC because once again, the SEC dominated the college football championship. And how about them Georgia Bulldogs? I mean, yeah,
That was a great game. I mean,
great
that
game.
was a fun game to watch. When Georgia fumbled, they called it a fumble, not an incomplete pass. You thought, that's it, game over. Alabama's going to steamroll here. But you got to hand it to the Bulldogs of Georgia. They were gritty.
Not since the days of Herschel Walker. I feel like I remember that Vince Dooley team. I don't know why, but Herschel was so transcendent as a back. Georgia's quarterback, he was not going to let that team lose, man. And by the way, he got a little emotional at the end of the game.
That's what he said. He said it was not because of him that team lost the game. You have to admire, and the story's out there. I'm sure a lot of people read about it by now. His story. He grew up a Georgia Bulldog fan. At the age of 3, he told his father he would be the starting quarterback. I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, you make movies out of things like that.
No, it's ridiculous. And again, like at a time when there's too much crying in sports, I think, and the pulling of Vermeil. And I think commercial break fans know the reference to the Philadelphia Eagles coach who would cry at the drop of a hat in a press conference. I mean, and there's been many athletes that have done it. Watching him burst into tears the moment it became too big for him, and he's kind of an ugly crier, but I mean, I loved it. I'm not in his grill right now. I loved it. I love the emotion. He should look in the mirror next time he wants to play out the crying, because I think he could have done it a little bit nicer.
And then I think of the story between Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, and obviously Nick Saban, their relationship. There's so many sub stories, as they say, to this.
Well, it's ridiculous because you'd think that these guys at this point, you'd think Kirby Smart hates Nick Saban just based upon Alabama's dominance. And yet this is a guy that really, look, Saban gave him his first coaching shot. And I believe, we're back at LSU. I think he was a defensive backs coach. He played at Georgia and played at a cup of coffee in the NFL. But then followed him to LSU, followed him to Miami, followed him to Alabama in 2007. So to the extent that I think these guys actually probably really care for each other, and I think Saban said nothing but great things about Kirby, which is that, look, maybe the hardest working guy he's ever had for him. Clearly one of the best defensive minds that he's ever coached. And here we are. Student outstrips the master.
So here, before we get into that, because there's obviously, we can tie that into a lot of things, but here's how my mind works. So Kirby Smart. So the first thing I think of is Bruno Kirby, as you know, played a young Peter Clemenza in Godfather 2. I mean, it's amazing the different roles he can take on. He's a very versatile actor.
Yeah, Bruno Kirby, I'm trying to think. First of all, like, he to me was a 70s guy, like late 70s, some of those teen movies. And I'm like, he didn't distinguish himself too much from me. So, Bruno Kirby, Bruno Mars, who else you got here?
Well, then the flip side of that is I hear the Smart portion, and I immediately think of Get Smart, which during its 5-year run was absolute must-watch TV. Get Smart was tremendous.
Barbara Feldon or Barbara,
yes.
Right? Barbara Feldon, 99.
That's Barbara Feldon, Agent 99. Genius show. I mean, a total takeoff on the James Bond stuff, but the writing was brilliant. The acting was just tremendous. I could watch Get Smart on a loop with The Odd Couple.
So do you think, first of all, has there ever been a shoe phone? Do you think the shoe phone was that innovative? Was that leading edge technology, man?
I mean, think about when this show was made. I mean, this is 1960s. They were so far ahead of the game in terms of cellular devices and listening devices and all that stuff. I mean, I would submit that maybe Get Smart was the roadmap for modern day Apple. Now, how about them apples there, Tim?
So at Apple, you think about leadership and you think about Tim Cook. It's not about the student outstripping the master, because I think no one ever outstrips Steve Jobs. No one will ever outstrip Nick Saban. 7 titles, I think, and even the Great Bear not there. So if you think about leadership, though, in corporate America today, Give me the three CEOs, and I'll try to tell you what I think about each one. Who are the top three?
Lisa Su at AMD, I think she's done an amazing job. Satya Nadella at Microsoft. And then you have to throw in a Jamie Dimon, just as the way he has distinguished himself in the banking arena.
Each one of those CEOs really rose out of the shadows of somebody else, and in some level, kind of like Kirby did. I mean, think about Jamie Dimon's ascent to the head of JP Morgan, but really, he was the heir to the throne at Citibank, and Sandy Weil passed over him. And ultimately, he moved on to, take over a Chicago-based bank that ultimately, through multiple acquisitions, was bought by J.P. Morgan. Jamie Dimon, clearly is the head and shoulders above the other CEOs in the banking world. But I think arguably the leadership that comes from that C-suite is very clear. If you think about Lisa Su, AMD has always played second fiddle to Intel. And think about what's happened in the last 3 years and who it's replaced. And if you think about, again, innovation at AMD, the ability to actually being in leading edge technologies, and really that's where their chips are made. I mean, I think that's the story. Who was our third CEO? Who did you give me? You gave me Satya
Nadella.
Well, again, no one surpasses Bill Gates, but I think you have a case here where Microsoft, really the leadership at Microsoft has been about, hey, look, where are we strong? We're strong in terms of enterprise software, owning the enterprise, the cloud, Azure, and it seems to me that, like the SEC, Microsoft is going to dominate for a long time.
If you had to give me a female vocalist, if you had to give me sort of your top two or three, I know my list, but I'd like to hear yours.
Look, I mean, Aretha Franklin, RESPECT, number one, and Whitney Houston. I mean, that might be the greatest voice of all time. And now, then you gotta have to get into like a Janis Joplin, who I think is again, maybe not the most beautiful voice out there, but a recognizable, powerful voice. And I think how did we get into female vocalists here?
Well, you mentioned Stripped earlier. Stripped is an album from Christina Aguilera. I happen to think she's got amazing chops. Her vocals are crazy. Yes, Aretha. I'll throw a Diana Ross at you. I'll throw a Karen Carpenter at you. I'll throw a Chrissy Hind at you.
And Christina over Britney, if you remember at one point, they were kind of going toe to toe. Who was the new vixen out there? And by the way, they were both crushing it. And of course, they both graduated from that great Academy of Mouseketeer, which has produced your buddy Timberlake and Ryan Gosling. I'm trying to think of the other people that.
I'm sure Justin Bieber was a Mouseketeer, although he's from Canada, so maybe not so much. But I will tell you that in terms of talent, Christina Aguilera is just way up there. You listen to her vocals, tremendous. I mean, I'm a Britney fan, but she can't hold a candle to Christina Aguilera, Tim.
Okay, so Candle in the Wind, Elton John, a song about Marilyn Monroe, I believe, and how, again, the pressure was so great on Marilyn. But, I mean, is Georgia the new top dog?
Well, for now they are, for sure. I mean, I thought they were one of the best teams in the country last year as well. They just haven't. I think once you get to the top of the mountain, I think it's easier to summit again. It's just getting there for the first time. So hear me out here. Alabama's obviously had a huge streak over the last decade or so. Maybe this will be the decade of the Bulldogs of Georgia.
Interesting. Alabama Shakes is a band you probably don't know because you're not cool enough, but they've had a couple big hits. One of their big hits was Hold On. Who of the three CEOs is going to hold on to that top position longer? Who do you think rises into the next era of their company? Is it Lisa Su? Is it Jamie Dimon? Is it Satya Nadella?
I think it's Lisa Su. I think Jamie Dimon's years are probably numbered. I think he's probably has other things he wants to do. My sense is he's got another 3 years or so. I think Lisa Su is one of those CEOs that can leave AMD and take over another shop and rise it as well. I think she's one of the up-and-coming stars. And you mentioned Alabama in terms of songs. You're a big Grateful Dead fan. I happen to know they sang some song, Alabama Getaway, that if I hear now, I will absolutely run out of the room.
By the way, again, a song I'm not sure people really understand the true meaning there, but I understand the true meaning of what you and I do every night around 6 o'clock on Reach TV. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, you can find us in all the airports in the Etats Unis. That's the United States, by the way. We're at the gates, the lounges, the restaurants, the bars. I mean, we're on Reach TV all day long. I mean, 6 o'clock if you want to sort of put a watch to it, but we're there all day long, Tim.
I am Tim Seymour, you are Guy Adami, and we are collectively
We're commercial break, brother.
See you soon. Go Dogs.